Good evening from our KHOU 11 studios. We are just all Texans right now as they win 30-6 in the AFC wildcard game over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we are, of course, wanting to hear what you, the fans, think about this AFC wildcard win. The Texans winning their first game on the road in franchise history. Want to, of course, hear what you think about that incredible Texans defense who held the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers to just 6 points. Awaiting my colleague, Jason Bristol, who will be joining us in just a little bit here. He's finishing up the 10 o'clock news, showing those Texans highlights that Sheldon Rankins scoop and score. In particular tonight, the thing that really put the nail in the coffin for the Texans over Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, on the road, in a cold environment. We talked about it in the 6 o'clock news. The Texans were 2-3 in cold weather games in the DeMeco Ryans era. They'd not won a playoff game in a cold environment, and they did just that tonight. So we want to hear your one word. I already see a number of them coming in. I'm going to write some of these down. Atomizer. Help me with that pronunciation if I've got that one wrong. And Sylvia, echoing these sentiments. And we are, again, awaiting Jason, who will be up here in just a few minutes. Winning, absolutely winning. Those are three words that definitely describe what happened tonight. Now, when we look a little bit closer at this game, maybe not quite as lopsided as the score was. The Texans scoring there kind of in garbage time towards the end of the game. Woody Marks scoring a touchdown there in the fourth quarter to really put them up 24-6 or 23-6 at that point. But the real difference in this game for me tonight was third down efficiency. The Texans, even though C.J. Stroud struggled and the Texans struggled with turnovers tonight, they were able to convert on third down, and that sustained drives. It kept them in drives when, for all intents and purposes, the Texans and CJ looked dead in the right, but they were able to stay in drives, in particular a couple of huge plays to Christian Kirk, who himself had a huge night. And when we look a little bit closer at these stats, the Texans offensively, 21-13 in terms of first downs. They definitely had a better night offensively than the Steelers, who towards the end of this game just looked pathetic on offense. The Texans able to convert 10 of 15 on third down compared to the Steelers 2 of 14 on third down. So these were really key statistics in sustaining drives, keeping them going, keeping the Texans offense on the field and the Steelers defense on the field as well, and really wearing them out. So a lot of great signs for the Texans defense tonight. And we are, again, awaiting Jason, who's just going to be here in a second, to join us. So let's go back to a couple more of your one words tonight while we wait for Jason to mic up and get here in the shot with us. Juanita, yeah, I would say this one is pretty apropos. Defense. Defense was the key, of course, for the Texans tonight. They absolutely made Aaron Rodgers look incompetent on offense. I mean, he had no time throwing the ball away, especially towards the end of the game, really making it inconvenient for Aaron Rodgers and that Steelers offense. When we look a little closer, again, at some of these offensive statistics, I mean, think about this. The Texans had 408 total yards. The Steelers only 175. 175 yards the Texans held them to. The Texans had 66 total plays compared to the Steelers' 56. It probably, honestly, felt a lot more than that in terms of a difference. And Aaron Rodgers, only 146 yards tonight. He had the one interception, and he was sacked 4 times by the Texans defense. But really, those defensive ends in Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter collapsing the pocket and putting a tremendous amount of pressure on Rodgers, who by the end of this game, again, looked completely worn out. And there he is.
Hey, everybody.
Our main man, Jason
man.
Bristol.
No, not the main man, just the man. Hey, everybody.
Jace, let me get your pen for you
it
here.
just fell.
There you go.
Well, I assume we're already racking up a lot of words
We're racking up the words here. We are racking up the words, and I've got a couple more here.
Oh, I like Daryl says, that one's for bum.
Love that. Love that.
Yes, of course, Daryl referring to the 1980 AFC Championship game in which the Oilers lost, but there's a very controversial play, as many know. Mike Renfro makes a catch in the end zone. It's not ruled a touchdown. The Oilers then have to settle for a field goal, and they never really recovered and lost. I think it was 27-13. And, of course, that play was one of the plays that really got the instant replay ball moving.
Yep.
It wasn't for another 5 or 6 years until the NFL instituted instant replay, but that play, the Renfro play, of course, is one that is always mentioned as the foundation, or one of the bricks of the foundation for instant replay.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Another word to describe this Texans effort tonight. I would say it was a fantastic effort by the defense.
Oh, yeah.
Offensively, some questions still remain. But hey, they've gotten this far.
Well, this is the script. I mean, I just mentioned on the air, got off the air and said, listen, this is the script. It's dominating defense, fourth quarter surge, and what I didn't say was that it's whatever you can get offensively.
It is.
That's the only thing that was different about this game was that it wasn't a one-score game.
And what's shocking about that it wasn't a closer game than it was the amount of times that the Texans turned the ball over and gave Pittsburgh incredible field position, and the Steelers could do nothing with it. The Texans defense just absolutely putting a lid on the Steelers. And how about DK Metcalf? My goodness, we're going into this game, people talking about what a threat he was. He misses that catch early in the game that hit him right in the hands.
Yep.
You see the disappointment in Rodgers' eyes. He didn't get another target until the second half. He ends up having 2 receptions for 42 yards.
And you weren't a fan of the flea flicker in the first half?
I wasn't a fan of the flea flicker because we've never seen them run that play at any point this season, and I just thought that was a terrible time to decide to try something that they haven't done. And I get it. We hear it all the time. Hey, we saw this look, so we decided to run it, right? We've had it in our back pocket. We've been practicing it. But the reality is that they were moving the ball well on the ground. CJ was moving the ball pretty well with these short death by 1,000 cuts passes, and then they decide to go for the big play, but in a way that's not conventional, and honestly put them in a really bad spot that could have changed the momentum of that game.
I didn't hate it. The execution was the problem. I didn't hate it. And I think I didn't think it was a bad moment in the game. We ride Nick Caley so much for play calling, lack of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't bother me. It was more the execution that obviously was the issue, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But CJ to me just looked very unsettled.
He did.
Very unsettled.
He had happy feet. There's no question about it. He looked unsettled. Very uncharacteristic of him after Woody Marks got laid out on that pass, and I can't remember which
player for the Steelers, but he went over and gave the guy a shove.
He shoved him.
Yeah.
He shoved him out of bounds after he saw that, kind of animated reaction out of the defender standing over Woody Marks. Very uncharacteristic of CJ. I felt like at the very least he was able to calm down and stay more composed in the second half. But this offense could have given this game up at many points during the game.
Listen, you got 2 defensive touchdowns. That's 13 points. So
critical, and
this
one
game,
of them critical.
This game was more of a 14-6, 17-6 in reality.
Yeah.
The 30 points looks great, but listen, that's from two defensive touchdowns. And now you're going into your next game. Have you mentioned the game time yet?
Not yet.
Yes.
I
So
have
game
not
time
yet.
is 2 p.m. our time, 2 p.m. on Sunday. Who knows what the situation's going to be with Nico Collins moving forward, because is this his second concussion of the season?
I don't think it's his second concussion. I think Petrie had a concussion.
Okay.
And CJ had a concussion. I don't think this is Nico's second. But look, when guys go into the concussion protocol, more often than not, it's longer rather than shorter. That's all I know, based on experience, right? I mean, we rarely see guys come back quickly from a concussion, so we don't know what his status will be next week for sure.
Everybody's different, but the difference from past years or last year is that you actually have a stable of wide receivers here. Last year,
you do. I mean,
last season they had very little in that room other than Nico Collins.
You've got Christian Kirk. I mean, my goodness. 8 receptions for 144 yards and a touchdown?
And that's the player.
Where did this guy come from?
That's the player Nick Caserio thought he was trading for. Let's be honest. That's the Christian Kirk best case scenario, best version of himself. And he was huge in this game. He was huge.
Yeah, he was huge, and we were talking just before you came on in particular about the third downs that the Texans were able to convert to sustained drives. I thought that was a big part of this game because you saw how gassed the Steelers defense was by the end of the game. So just to keep them out there, even though the Texans didn't necessarily convert on all of those opportunities, probably they really only converted on a few of them, but they kept that Steelers defense out there, wore them out, and ultimately by the end of the game, they were just done.
We are, I assume, getting a lot of these are new comments here regarding CJ.
Yep. Yeah, and hey, I mean, rightly so after a night like this. Rightly so.
It's interesting. His numbers aren't terrible.
No.
His numbers aren't terrible. 21 of 32 for 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And you would, on the surface, that's not horrible.
It's not.
But the fumbles.
Yeah. And the interception.
The interception, the drop snaps. I just felt he was very unsettled.
Yeah.
And sometimes when the game is sped up. For me, the game seemed like it was sped up to him because instead of, I don't want to say taking his time, but occasionally when you are sped up, fumbles, not handling the ball properly, that's a lot of times the end result of the game too fast. And I'm not saying that the game's too fast for him, but he just seemed unsettled is the best word I can use.
He looked unsettled. He acted unsettled. It was an uncharacteristic game for him. We've seen him struggle at times with interceptions in the red zone or in the end zone. In past years, we've seen him struggle with that a couple of times. But tonight, his decisions, deciding to still try to throw the ball is really what cost him those fumbles.
Yeah,
right?
and here's
and the interception.
Without a doubt. And here's another reason why the Texans won this game. And I don't know if you talked about this. Did you go down through the team stats?
We went through some of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you mention the biggest one that's there that just pops?
To me, the third downs is what pops.
I mean, third down efficiency, 10 of 15? 10 of 15 on third down for the Texans.
And then you compare it to the 2 of 14 for Pittsburgh, and that's even more magnified.
Yards per play, 6.2 yards per play. A lot of what Houston had was shorter third downs. And third and longs have really been a problem for this team this season.
It seemed like they got every one tonight. They got every one they needed. I mean,
Rushing. At one point, they were averaging 6 yards a carry. They ended up at 5.3.
I mean, that's still a full yard and a half, probably more than what they average on the regular.
Sheldon Rankins, 1.5 sacks, a fumble recovery, and a touchdown.
That's a night.
They were 2 for 3 in the red zone. They also led the penalty battle, but
yeah. I mean, it was kind of negated by Pittsburgh's inability on offense.
Seth says, "What's up, y'all? Love those pick sixes." Jose says, CJ wasn't great, but then again, all teams that played this past weekend weren't great either. Yeah, CJ seemed to have issues holding the ball or receiving snaps more than any other quarterback that I saw this weekend.
It was odd. It was odd. How about the snap that he wasn't even looking? I mean, and then, you talk about...
We've seen that.
We have, but,
we've seen
but that goes back to your point that you were talking about last night on Sports Extra.
Clunky. The operation can get clunky.
The operation being clunky. Nunti, if that's the correct pronunciation, if I'm wrong, please let me know. But a great word, swarm.
Mm-hmm.
Swarm.
That's one of your
we
favorite
always
words.
talk about swarm, Jason.
Yeah, that's one of your favorite words.
We're always talking about swarm.
Do you want to handle a little bit of DeMeco there?
Yeah, why don't I step out for a second, and
Okay.
I'll handle this DeMeco, and we'll get DeMeco on, and we'll listen to some of what he has to say.
Yeah. So once again, Jason Bristol and Zack Tawatari here in the KHO 11 newsroom. If you're watching on YouTube, please join us on the KHO 11 Facebook page, as that is where we are taking your comments and talking about a Texans win, a win that the final score is something. In a weekend, on a weekend, or a series of wild card games where every game was close, this game was close right until that fourth quarter, in which the Texans then exploded, outscoring the Steelers 23-0, and doing it in a very Texan way with 2 defensive touchdowns. Ann says, weird. Jose says, what was Fairbairn doing when he missed that extra point? I don't know. But the way kickers have operated on this wild card weekend, I'm not surprised by that either. I think there is a discussion amongst a lot of us that some of these things that the Texans do will eventually catch up with them. We'll see if that happens against New England. New England looked really impressive against the Chargers. In the comments section, if you did watch the New England game, what impressed you most about what you saw from the New England Patriots? And now there's a number of interesting storylines, because you have the Patriots North and we're not Patriots South, dating back to Cal McNair, must have been 2020. We're not Patriots South. Obviously, there is I think I would still say a considerable New England influence on these Texans. Not as much as once before, but I still think that there is a lot of New England flavor within the football offices at NRG. Ann says, May is a beast. Yes, Drake May is a beast. Ann says, that's my worry. I assume that's... Eric says, a win is a win after giving up the ball 3 times. No doubt. Nick Caserio always preaches that typically winning and losing comes down to turnovers, and the Texans are very fortunate. They lost the turnover battle and still won by 24 points. If you said to Nick Caserio or DeMeco Ryans or Nick Caley or CJ or Matt Burke, you're going to lose the turnover battle, and you're going to win by 24. I don't think any one of those individuals would believe that. Or they'd be like, come on, man, come on. So yes, it appears that a number of you agree with this idea that a number of these issues that the Texans have had, whether it's I always call it the offense, the operation, how clunky it is, or relying on a field goal kicker too much. There's just so many things that eventually a lot of the ills that we have seen throughout this 2025 season will come at the worst time, and they will all happen in a bunch together. I was really impressed by New England. I was impressed by the way they rushed the passer, the way they got after Justin Herbert. I was impressed by, as Ann mentions, Drake May. I mean, Drake May he's pretty good. But the Texans have made nearly every quarterback look mortal. So we do have DeMeco Ryans speaking. Okay, we'll check. We're confirming. But again, total yards, 408 for the Texans, 175 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, we're still waiting. Zara says, outstanding. You don't have that word on your board, Zach, so I will write outstanding.
Yes, please do.
What was your word? Did you have one yet, or?
I didn't write one down yet. Let's think about that for a second. I do think that swarm was really a good way to describe this game, because I don't know if we've seen a game more define that mentality that DeMeco Ryans preaches, that the Texans preach. I feel like they got the one touchdown and they said, that's enough. We'll take it from here tonight.
I got mine.
Okay.
I got mine. Once again, the Texans and Patriots will meet 2 p.m. on Sunday. We can reveal them at the same time if you'd like.
Let's do it.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Fitting and textbook. Man, great minds think alike, Jace.
To me, this was a textbook win. This checks so many boxes of what the Texans do.
Yeah.
And that's why I said that this is a textbook victory. This is how DeMeco Ryans and his staff, if they were to draw up a victory, this is how it would go, minus a lot of the issues that C.J. Stroud had in this game. That's why I'm saying textbook.
It was fitting for me because it described the Texans season in a nutshell on the winning side of things, right? When the Texans win, they do it with fantastic defense. They might score a touchdown or two offensively, but they do it with incredible defense, and that's exactly what they did tonight. They looked like the best defense in the league tonight.
Yep.
They looked like a championship defense in the league, but you just wonder, like you were saying, when does that luck run out without an offense? Or does it? Hey, maybe it doesn't.
I mean, Seth Payne.
Maybe it doesn't.
Former Texan Seth Payne from Sports Radio 610, appearing Sunday night on Sports Extra and on KHO 11 News this morning, said that, listen, you can ride a defense to a championship, and he believes you can do that. And if you can do that, then this would be a defense you can put a saddle on, climb aboard, and then ride off into the sunset.
And what's interesting tonight that I don't know if we have seen yet this season is sort of this other side of the strategy, which is the offense staying on the field long enough to kind of play a defense of its own in tiring out the Steelers and wearing them out.
And that's something that we have not seen.
We haven't seen them hold on to the ball long enough to be able to do that. So it's interesting.
It is. Also interesting is when we go back to the offense and the operation. This is now a third analyst this season who has questioned the end of half strategy by the Houston Texans.
Operation.
I will give some credit to Landry Locker from the Locker Room and SNL Texans Talk. He wrote down who the analysts were. I know that JJ was one, now Aikman, and I can't remember the other. But yes?
Yeah, we're about a couple seconds away.
Okay.
A couple seconds away.
A couple of seconds away
almost
from
there.
DeMeco Ryans. But that's something, again, when you look at the operation, you hope that that's not going to burn them later in the season. Terry is here. She says spectacular, so I put that on the board. Ann says the defense was unreal. Pauline, defense dominated. Eric says overcoming adversity. Tricia says, like I've said before, our defense may be on fire, but our offense needs to step up and be just as good if we move on all the way to the big game. I don't think this offense will ever reach the level of this defense.
No.
But if they get anywhere close, you may want to start looking into tickets in Santa Clara.
I mean, look at the landscape, right, of the AFC this year.
Mm-hmm. Tricia also
it's
says
wide open.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I thought
it's okay.
You had a pause there.
It's remarkable how wide open it is this year compared to previous years.
And this may be their best chance ever of getting to the big game. When you look at the overall health of this team.
Yeah.
The health of, if you will, of the AFC, and how this remaining group of teams not only plays, but some of the injuries they have, I think that that's also certainly another big, big, big deal for these Texans. Tricia says first on the road win for the Texans in the playoffs. First loss for Pittsburgh since 1991, that meeting Monday night. She likes record-breaking.
I like this word from Trina.
Mm-hmm.
Slay.
Oh.
For all of our Gen Z viewers out there.
We got another
Thank you,
one.
Trina.
Dangerous.
Yep, that's another good one. We're having some technical difficulties with the DeMeco right now.
We got dangerous. You want me to try?
Let me see if I can try and step out and plug in one more time and see if we can get this.
Do you think that that's
get this?
Not to
on.
get all inside baseball, but we have Ethernet cables here.
I do think it's
and then
an
we have
Ethernet.
Wi-Fi here. And sometimes when you're jumping from one to the other, it gets all scrambled. The computers, they don't know how to deal with it. It's kind of like Aaron Rodgers dealing with the Texans' pressure. It's coming from here. Oh my gosh, no, that guy's covered over there. Oh, I got somebody at my feet. That's how sometimes technology works when you've got all these different places coming in. Ann says, I've been a season ticket holder since first game. Texans don't focus on offensive line, have had some amazing quarterbacks, but no protection. It is interesting how that has been a situation for years with the Texans franchise. Give this group credit, and when I say group, coaches and personnel people, because this group has been pretty good. We showed on the news a week and a half ago that they cut their sacks by 23. They allowed 23 fewer sacks than the year before. That's a huge improvement. In fact, of the teams that allowed the most sacks a year ago, see if I remember, Bears, Browns, Seahawks, Texans, 3 of those 4 have improved considerably, and oh yeah, 3 of those 4 made the playoffs. So again, Jason Bristol here in the KHO 11 newsroom. Appreciate everyone for sticking with us here. Sally says, Super Bowl bound H-Town rules. Super Bowl bound H-Town rules. Well, we will see. There is still a lot of football to be played, and not just a lot of football in very unfriendly environments. Think about this for a second. If the Texans were to make the Super Bowl, they could potentially have to go to Pittsburgh, to New England, and to Denver. That is a road that is not fun. That is a road that is not fun at all. So, let's see here. It's possible that Zack has driven to Pittsburgh now to see if... Oh, we haven't? Zack's back. He drove to Western Pennsylvania. Welcome back. You were able to get DeMeco for us.
Hey, I was not going to stop.
No.
Okay, we owe it to our viewers to
that
have
is
DeMeco.
the swarm mentality.
That's swarm mentality here in the KGU11 newsroom.
All right, everybody. Here is DeMeco Ryans at the podium, courtesy of the Houston Texans. Let's listen in.
First and foremost, for me, I just want to give all praise, honor, and glory to our God who's been gracious to us, and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. What a game, what a performance by our guys. And guys just continue to let their light shine through how they're playing. So proud of our team, proud of the effort and how we finished the game. It wasn't pretty from the start, and we had some poor moments in the game, but I'm just proud of our guys for continuing to remain resilient, no matter. First and foremost, for me, I just want to give all praise, honor, and glory to our God who's been gracious to us, and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. What a game, what a performance by our guys. And guys just continue to let their light shine through how they're playing. So proud of our team, proud of the effort and how we finished the game. It wasn't pretty from the start, and we had some poor moments in the game, but I'm just proud of our guys for continuing to remain resilient, no matter.
All right, so there's a little of DeMeco Ryans talking about how resilient his team is. And this is, again, the script that we've seen. Fourth quarter, Texans could not finish early in the year, had troubles in close games. That's why they started 0-3. But now 10 straight wins, right? Yeah, 10 straight wins. Texans are playing like they want it. They have come a long way showing how a team should play. We were at a deficit, now 10-game streak. One word, ooh, I like this. Awakening, an awakening. If you were to write a word for the entire season, yeah, awakening. Tina is here, says amazing job. We also have believe. Believe. Listen, with that defense, anything is possible. And guess what? Christy says the same thing. Expect the unexpected. Anything is possible. That is true. That is true. Again, the stats. The biggest number in this game is those third downs, the third down efficiency, 10 of 15. In a playoff game, 10 of 15. Early on, the numbers were very, very similar. After the first quarter, this game was basically a wash. It was one team trying to figure out the other. Obviously, Christian Kirk and that one drive, 92 yards, 13 plays, arguably one of the best drives of the season, and how that drive formed and developed with 5 straight run plays. Woody Marks, he was a beast. Now, the Texans certainly, I think, when they looked at the film from the Steelers, it probably revealed what the stats showed, and that is that the Steelers were middle of the pack run defense, and my guess is they felt they could run the football. Carolyn says, way to go, Texans. I am so excited to see you guys win. Paul says, fundamentally sound defense. Carolyn says, excited. Carissa, great job, Texans. Way to lock in. I imagine the early line is out. There it is. The early line is out. AFC divisional round, courtesy of betonline.ag. Buffalo Bills at Denver Broncos. Pick 'em. That game you can see on CBS Saturday. Houston Texans at New England Patriots. New England Patriots, 2.5-point favorite. It's moved a little bit. It opened at 3. So it's essentially a pick'em game in some ways. 41.5 is the total. Do you think that the Texans and Patriots can combine for more than 41.5 points? I do. I do. If you're interested in the other lines, 49ers, Seahawks, that line is 7.5, Seahawks. Rams, Bears, that is the other game on Sunday. That's the game after the Texans. Bears, this can't be right. Let's see. Bears are it says that can't be right. Line is unchanged. Was that a mistake? Now I feel like I got to look at this because it says plus 3.5, which means the Rams are favored, but I think that might be, let's see. We'll go in and check. Yvonne says, awesome. Alfonso says, good job. All right, so here we go. Let's look for accuracy's sake. Well, Rams favored 3.5. All right. Rams on the road, 3.5. How long have we been going here, Lupita? 40 minutes? Wow. Thank you, all of you, for hanging in with us. Seth says, early prediction, 32-30 Texans. Whoa. 32-30. You're going to give DeMeco Ryans a heart attack. Another 30-point game for the opposing offense. Woof. Probably should get the new Foxborough, Massachusetts weather for Sunday. Sunday, January 18th. I imagine it's cold. You know? Let's see. 10-day. Well, this Sunday, it's going to be 40 and sunny. My guess is, according to this, 40 and sunny, or partly cloudy. So 39 and partly cloudy. That's what you have. So Zach, have you tried sending it at like 420, like low?
That's what I'm doing right
Okay, cool. That is our direct line to Zack Tawatari. Old school people. All this fancy technology. If I showed you all the computers over here in the KHO 11 newsroom. But sometimes merely just shouting to someone is the best course of action. CJ Stroud is in. We're checking. It'll be very interesting to hear what CJ has to say, given the struggles he had holding on to the football, taking snaps, and CJ smartly wearing a very familiar baseball cap. Now we'll hear from CJ Stroud at the podium, courtesy of the Texans.
First, I guess, what do you feel like happened to some of the fumbles? And how did you feel like you were able to bounce back? DeMeco talked a lot about your resolve, and I think you made a huge throw to Christian Kirk. But can you take me through those two things?
We had some problems with the snaps. Me catching them, got to find a way just to catch them and then take care of the ball. We knew on tape that they did a good job of punching at the ball or trying to, get you to, while you're throwing, get your throwing arm. So, I try to work on that throughout the week. But they made plays, and I think these games, the playoffs games, from my experience, like, they're going to make plays, we're going to make plays. It's all about, moving forward and, trying your best to, flush it and keep going. So, I thought, when every time we had to bounce back, we made more plays. So, I'm proud of our guys for having a little bit of resilience in those moments. And, to finish the game like that was really dope. I thought he played great. I think he's one of the best in the league. I think we've tried to find ways to get him the ball, but just wasn't really working out. But that's what he can do. I've been a big fan of his since I've been a kid. And just have him as a teammate and as a brother. We're really close. Our families are close. So I'm just super proud of that guy. I told him, it's not easy being in the year he's in, not having the production, stats wise. And for him, to keep going week in and week out, prepping the right way, to see it pay off, was really dope. So I'm super proud of him, and just keep it going with him. And he's a heck of a player.
DeMeco said this is the best defense performance he's ever seen.
Faith and trust in me, and I have faith and trust in myself. I learn from my mistakes and try to move on. And I know things I need to get fixed, but I think I had a good game. But just got to clean those things up. But for those guys who always keep me uplifted is really helpful.
Things aren't going well in the first half like that. Do guys rally around you? Do you need to be by yourself? What's that like for you there on the sidelines?
Yeah, I think so. I think guys come up to me and give me encouragement. But I think but everybody. One thing I like about our team is everybody holds themselves accountable. It's not just on CJ, not just on me. So I've been on teams like that where that's a lot of pressure. But everybody is. I could have did this better. I could have did that better. But I think it does start with me. I got to take care of the football. But other than that, I thought I played a good game, and those guys did as well. So.
The last thing, the snaps in particular, is it the weather, or is there anything you can point to? Was the problem?
No, I just got to get it fixed.
All good. Thanks, y'all.
So there is CJ Stroud, I should say, from the podium in Pittsburgh.
I went there, I filmed it, I edited it, and I brought it back.
He is the Flash. We call him the Flash. We're going to wrap up here in a few more minutes. We're getting some scores, predictions for next week. 25-10 Texans. Seth said 32-30 Texans. I said you're gonna give DeMeco a heart attack.
Seth.
Bernice with one word, dominant. Adrian says phenomenal. John said, I had a good game. Awesome game by Lita. Sorry, I really couldn't hear CJ that well. So
He did say they had some problems
Yeah.
with the snaps.
Yeah, that's
obviously.
Yeah, they need to clean it up. But we've heard that from CJ a lot this season. And listen,
Yeah.
CJ, would surmise that he feels very fortunate to be moving on, and certainly his tone, he realizes
Yeah.
he didn't play well.
He knows it.
He
knows
didn't
it.
play well.
He knows it.
Yeah.
His tone was reflective of the game that he and the offense had.
Trisha's wondering, is this Aaron Rodgers' last game?
I think so.
Let's see if any news has come out about that.
See if they asked him in the post game. I'm sure they did. If he's spoken yet. I mean, he probably has at this point, but
I don't see anything here.
yeah, there was, ESPN on the broadcast really staying with Rodgers at the end of that game and just kind of allowing that moment to unfold. You see Rodgers acknowledging, the Texans on the other side and some of his teammates, and just kind of taking that lonely walk, honestly, off the field and looking kind of reflective. Obviously, I don't know what he's thinking, but I can only describe it as I saw it at the end of that broadcast. And he's done everything you can do. There's no doubt about that.
He had a testy exchange about Mike Tomlin
Yeah, I mean, you wonder about Tomlin too.
in terms of what he's learned being with Mike Tomlin for a season and Rodgers, according to this, I can't independently verify it because I can't play it, but apparently he says I've answered that a number of times. I've talked extensively about how I feel about Mike, and I just did in that bleeping answer. So.
Mike also asking us about an update on Nico's condition.
My guess is we won't really know
Yeah.
until later in the week.
At least.
He
Yeah.
was ruled out with a concussion, and
He's going to be in the protocol.
He's going to go in the protocol. Some guys
Yeah.
bounce back quicker than others. But we'll see. All right, everybody. Thank you for all the words. We had phenomenal, outstanding, I said textbook, spectacular, record-breaking,
Swarm Slay.
dangerous, awakening, believe, excited. You had
Winning. Absolutely winning. Defense. Fantastic. Swarm. Fitting. Slay.
Yep.
I don't know if DeMeco's going to add Slay to the wall in the Texans auditorium.
But
on
if he-
Swarm. If he did, though,
If he does, we'll let you know.
that would be pretty awesome.
All right, everybody. I will not see you next Sunday here. I will be in Foxborough, Massachusetts. So Zack and Luis
Probably
will.
going to be stuck with me. So
You will. No, you enjoy Zack. Everyone enjoys Zack. Texans enjoyed this, a 30-6 win, their 10th straight victory of the season. As always, thank you for hanging out and commenting, providing us with questions, your commentary. Still going here. CJ needs to figure things out, says Sean. Trisha on Aaron Rodgers has had a phenomenal career, deserves the recognition regardless how this game ended.
look at this.
Okay. According to this post on X, what did he say?
I'm not going to make any emotional decisions.
Every game.
Could be my final game.
So, there you have it.
It's a little ambiguous.
Well, listen.
Thank you, Lupita.
I think anybody who has been in this game for a long time, I'm sure after a beating like that,
You can't
he's
make a
probably
decision.
saying,
No.
why would I want to come back?
Well, that too.
And then when training camp rolls around, you're like, I'd like to come back, but I don't want to go through training camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously, with the lack of action sometimes in training camps and exhibition games, you probably need, it's different for a quarterback. Quarterback doesn't have to go through some of the grueling stuff that other players do. But We'll see. We'll see. Cheryl with a word, stressful. Yes, for a while it was stressful. But in the end, the Texans pull out the victory, and now they're headed to New England to face the New England Patriots in the divisional round. For Zack Tawatari, Jason Bristol, all of us here at KHOU 11, thank you so much for joining us. Again, your final score, Texans win 30-6 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as always, thanks for watching.